Welcome to our first regular episode of Literary Gaming. Sorry, it's been a long time since we made the intro. I have a very busy filming schedule, and it's sometimes hard to keep up with video games. I don't get a chance to play nearly as much as I would like to. But I recently got to play one of the most amazing literary games that I have ever witnessed, and I really want to talk about it because I think this is a game that is, it's well known, but it's often overlooked. A lot of people that I talk to are not familiar with this game. And from an exploration of video games as literature, I think this is one of the strongest titles that I've ever encountered, especially in a long form game where you have a very big budget. We find a lot of literary games are very low budget. They're very indie studio, single developer, and they really approach it more like traditional literature, which is amazing. But they often lack the big teams, the big investment, the big distribution that a AAA title will have. And this particular game has a well-known writer that's absolutely famous in the industry, has a large publisher, has the backing of many decades of experience with a large team. And then distribution to many platforms as a AAA title, right? So it's available on PlayStation, it's available on Windows, and it's pretty accessible. And many of the Windows distribution platforms carry it. And this game is Detroit Become Human by Quantic Dream. And for those who are not familiar with Quantic Dream, that is the brainchild of David Cage. He started writing games like in the 1990s. Famously, Quantic Dream brought out Fahrenheit, also known as Indigo Prophecy in North America, in the late 90s or early 2000s, I think 2005, and then has made a number of really well-known examples of literary gaming in the years since then. And so this game is not that new. This is 2018, but it only really got its Windows release at December 2019. So it really hit during the COVID time, right? So a lot of people probably did not talk about it. The information did not get out there the way that it might have had it been at a different time. It was just kind of in that lost time frame for a lot of people. This game, so I only recently came to this. This is one where my children actually found this game, acquired it, played it, and couldn't stop raving about it from a story perspective. I saw them play it just a little bit and was really intrigued by what I saw, and they played through it. And it's relatively rare that my children will just play through a game. They will, but it's a lot of times they'll try games out and be like, yeah, this isn't that great, and then they'll go on to something else. And this is one that they very much became dedicated to, put in an incredible amount of time. And you can tell when you have, I think, a really good literary experience that it prompts a natural discussion of the meaning behind characters and motives and interactions and what ifs and that kind of thing. And so with this game, I noticed immediately. Now, my children at the time that they played it were 12 and 14, a little bit older now. It's been a little while. And they immediately, during the time they were playing it, and for a long time afterwards, would be really invested in the character and the character developments and the character decisions, and very interested in, well, what if they had done this? What if they had done that? And why did they do this? And I think it's important from my perspective, and this is, I realize, the dangers in literature of trying to guess the influences of someone, but this is very, very reminiscent of Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, also the inspiration behind Blade Runner from 1982. This game very much has a what if you were making a Blade Runner style story in 2018 using an interactive medium, and I think and then setting it in Detroit, which is kind of random. This really answers that question with the same types of motives and questions and problems, but on a very different scale. And it's a very unique take on it, but you can see that inspiration, what I feel must be that inspiration behind the scenes. And this game actually started work as a demo in 2012, so they put about 6 years into making this game, which for a literary piece is a relatively long time. This is actually currently the latest release from Quantic Dream. They have not made a follow-up game to this yet. They are working on of all things, a Star Wars title, which I find very interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the Star Wars extended universe. I love the original movies, but I feel that their literary vision has drifted quite significantly and become a little bit more pulp than literary. But famously, Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, which were made now probably 23, 24 years ago, were absolutely phenomenal literary works within the Star Wars universe. And not that other Star Wars games haven't been great. There's probably a lot of good comparisons in there to make, but those specifically stand out, I think, for most people who are really interested in this type of gaming as examples of just how good storytelling can be using the framework of Star Wars. And Quantic Dream, with their incredible background and their technology and their experiences with Beyond Two Souls, which was 2013, I believe, and Detroit Become Human 2018, that they're now putting that effort into a new Star Wars title that should, I believe, be bringing, and according to them, is bringing the same style of storytelling and deep literary experience to the Star Wars universe could very much be our generation's or this generation's KOTOR. I guess millennials got KOTOR. I'm older than that, and now Gen Z and Gen Alpha are getting this new title from Quantic Dream. So I'm very excited. I'm very interested by what they may do with that. It has a lot of potential, even though it's in the Star Wars universe. I always worry when someone is going to be coming into a pre-existing IP universe and trying to give their take on it that can go well, but often it does not. And Star Wars is a difficult one to work with, but it does give a lot of credence to whatever work they do. So there's potential. I'm not holding my breath, but I'm very excited. I will definitely be checking it out. But Detroit Become Human really tackles what happens when there is sentience within an android population. And I think that their take on this is very reminiscent of themes from Fahrenheit 451, from 1984, from Blade Runner, or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and a lot of other. It's not necessarily tackling new topics, but it is, I think, taking it in a very engaging way with really amazing graphics, really good voice acting, amazing writing by David Cage and Adam Williams, and this amazing amount of decision making that allows for, and this is where interactive, I think, really shines. Interactive literature, it's important to note, indicates that we are involved in the story, but it does not necessarily mean that we control the story. In quite a few interactive literary works, it is very common to have a specific story that you want to tell, as is the norm in books and movies and television and other media. And of course, there are choose your own adventure books. We know how difficult they are, and they struggle in a literary sense, but they can be, right. But they have challenges with interactive literature, with video gaming as a platform. We have a lot more capability to allow for decision making and multiple paths of storytelling. But that doesn't mean that we're going to make use of them. And that's a great degree of difficulty in making that. Every path either has to be algorithmically generated or has to be created ahead of time. And that means basically creating many games. So it is common when there's a specific story that someone wants to tell, or an adaptation of a linear storytelling from an alternative media, a legacy media. When we do that, we have typically an interactivity where we do things to move the story forward. We may be able to pause the story, advance the story, make very minor decisions or interactions, or take time to smell the roses type of actions. Whereas in something like Detroit Become Human, what's really amazing is that throughout 32 chapters of the game, you have an opportunity at nearly every turn to change the course of events. And those events can be, do main characters live or die, or is the major outcomes of the work completely different. And so we have this massive amount of branching, massive number of options, and some of them have very little impact and some of them have massive impact. And so you have many endings with many different possible outcomes, and that of course, from a video gaming perspective, is great because it offers a lot of replay value and a lot of interest, and it's very engaging, right? You're not just here to witness a story and kind of push it along to help make sure you don't fall asleep. You're actually a storyteller in your own universe, and so my children played the game, and their outcome and their the surviving characters and what was the story that they told ended up being very different than the story that I told when I played the game. We took very different paths in most cases. In some cases, we made every decision the same, and in others, we were extremely divergent. And so this is a game I feel does an amazing job at allowing a reflection as to the player's interpretation of how they would participate in events, how they feel about and how are affected by the story as it happens.
Are you armed? Yes. I have a gun. Drop it! No sudden moves or I'll shoot! There! No more gun!
And it's really interesting, I think, to see that. Now, in addition to that, the entire thing is very engaging because of the way that they approach this. So right now, my children, now that we've completed it twice, my youngest daughter is about to complete it on her own. And with that, we have a third set of decisions made throughout the game. And as she plays, and both of my daughters, they tend to play together, and they both played with me, so we were all there discussing it as we went, and they would be like, oh, that's a completely different response than I would have had. And of course, when I've played with my wife, not this game, but others, we tend to have very different reactions to things in games when there's these branching moments of emotional decision making. How would you respond, or how do you feel your character would respond to these events? We tend to take very different paths, and that allows games to reflect on us. And so now my youngest is also playing this game herself and taking yet another path, but closer to that of her sister. They then sit and discuss together for many hours at a time, very deep questions about the individual characters and what they do. And so they approach this very much like a university literary class, where they're digging into character development, digging into actions of the universe, digging into the meaning behind things, the emotional aspects of it, the geopolitical ramifications of decisions, why things would happen, why do they feel the writers felt a certain thing. This game also has, and this is relatively unique, I think, is at the end of every chapter, they actually show a lot of branching decisions and give you some insight into how you played the game, and actually provide tooling for literary analysis. And so that's like completely different and really unique. So this is a game that isn't just interactive literature. It is very much made to be interactive literature in an extremely engaging way. And so now they're about to finish it on this third playthrough, and then their goal is to go through and do what's called a 100% run, where they manage to get through a number of playthroughs, every possible major decision that exists in the game, so that you can see every single thing that may have happened throughout a number of plays. They're that engaged in it and that interested in seeing how different choices will play out in different ways, how they affect the world, how the world affects them, and so forth. It's really, really neat to see a game like this and able to engage in such a literary way. And this doesn't require, and this is probably the greatest single point of this game and others like it, is that this is creating a literary analysis by being amazingly engaging at a literary level. It is not this is not required homework. This is not asking someone to do these things and saying, well, why don't you look at it this way? It's not pushing for this. It simply provides the tools. It provides an amazing literary experience. And this is true of a great literary work, right? If you're reading Tom Sawyer, it encourages you to, if you have friends who've also read it, to sit down and be like, whoa, what do you think about Tom painting that fence? That was really funny, right? Or I really love how he manipulated people and this, and I love the imagery of the Mississippi River and what it represents, and I love the adventures that they go on and how this evokes feelings of childhood, right? When you have an amazing literary work, such as Tom Sawyer or Little Women or whatever, and you have a shared experience where other people have read it at around the same time as you, you're naturally going to want to discuss it. You're going to feel engaged with the work, and that'll make you want to engage with other people. And with a game like this, because they played it together, and because I played it with them, and they're playing it again, there's this shared literary experience that naturally creates this desire to sit and discuss and analyze and dig into what's going into the game. And of course, we have the same thing happen when we play Nancy Drew, for example. But those are much shallower literary works. First of all, they don't have the branching decision making, right? There's a single story. You're either going to get to the end or you're not, but you're not going to end up with many different endings. Of course, you could die along the way, but that's not really quite the same. So getting to the end of a Nancy Drew adventure gives you a very shallow, very short literary experience where you can say, oh, what do you think about these different things? But I think with Detroit Become Human, it is this really large discussion of why would these characters feel this way? What makes this decision right and that one wrong? Or is there a right and wrong? And just you can really get deeply into it. From a gameplay perspective, I really like Detroit Become Human from a gameplay as it pertains to literary works because it has, I feel, a really good blend. Of course, I am in my late 40s, so I'm negatively affected, as most people my age are, by games that try to tell a story but do so through a lot of required action because we find that to be a barrier in many cases, not everyone, but very much a barrier to completing games. It can be very difficult to jump into a game where you want to be involved in a story, you want to be engaged by a story, and then suddenly you have to have a physical challenge that may be very difficult and distracting, may take you a very long time to get through, or may be impossible for you to get through, and you're unable to complete the game in the way that you want to because of an action challenge that doesn't fit with the storytelling that you're there for. With Detroit Become Human, I don't feel that that is the case. There is some action, but I think that it is well placed in such a way that it is not overwhelming. At no point did I feel that the action was so hard that it created a barrier. Of course, somebody may feel that way, but I think that it's a good balance of forcing you to be very engaged. That's the advantage of action and storytelling, is that it heightens your adrenaline. It makes your brain very alert. You're much more connected with the characters when you've been through a shared experience. This is a shared experience with the on-screen character, right? They're struggling to fight off an attacker, and you're engaged with that, right? You're hitting buttons and making decisions and dodging and whatever, and it forces you to have this emotional bond with a made-up character, and it makes you very alert. And so the story becomes much more a part of your story because you've done something. You're not just nudging a character forward, you're participating in it. And I think Detroit Become Human balances this well with a lot of very calm, very thoughtful walking around, having conversations, looking at things, diagnosing things, and you have a lot of time where you're very, okay, I'm able to enjoy the story, I'm able to enjoy the artwork, I'm able to enjoy the music and the dialogue, but you also have, and a lot of that just paces pretty well. Like it's very self-pacing. There's only so much for you to do. You're going to move it along, and the game has a lot of cutscenes and a lot of automated sequences. These things are going to keep the pacing moving. But then when something happens, you tend to be very engaged, but you tend to know that it's coming and have not such a hard time reacting to it that it creates a situation where you're going to want to say, I can't do it. I'm going to get stuck at some point. I can't do it. You don't have that feeling. It very much is you need to be alert and involved, but we're going to get to the end of this story and you're going to get to tell the story as you feel you should. And I think that's very important. And so this game specifically, I think, provides an amazing literary experience from the story that's being told, while also having a really good balance of gameplay mechanics that tend to make for an extremely engaging gaming experience for someone looking to experience it as literature. If your goal is a game that is action, you don't care about the story, and you just want it as a backdrop to an action game, you'll be very disappointed, I think, in this game. It has an amazing story, but the action, while okay, is not something you would choose it for. It's too simplistic and it's too rare. But from a purely engaging you and pulling you into the story and making you a part of the storytelling experience. I think that it is extremely well balanced and well worth checking out. If you have not played this, it's available on Steam. It's available on Epic. Definitely check it out. It's not expensive. It's 5 years old. It plays on a lot of hardware, but it looks fantastic. Highly recommended as one of the greatest examples of a game that was clearly written to be literature in every sense of the word. This is certainly a work of art within the interactive literary experience, and going to be a hallmark of this generation's literary experience. Thanks for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe. Tell people about the show. If you'd like to ask questions and leave your own comments as to what games you've played, what you like. Have you played Detroit Become Human? What do you think of it? Just get down there in those comments. I'm not great about responding to them, but I will eventually get back to them. I do have a lot of channels. If you're interested in my life in general, I actually post a vlog every day. I'm a daily vlogger, which takes up an incredible amount of my time and keeps me very busy. My vlog is simply my name, Scott Allen Miller Vlog, here on YouTube, and it's a totally different format with a lot of content about travel and my life in Central America. For those of you who don't know, I live in Central America, which is a great place to live when you're a video gamer, because video games cost less and life costs less, and there's more time to sit back, relax, and actually enjoy video games. And thanks for joining me. I will see you all next time.